All right, we are live, and the New York Mets. Who gives a shit, boys? We got the boys back together. Who gives a shit about the New York Mets? This is a Brooklyn Cyclones, Syracuse Mets, Binghamton Rumble Ponies podcast. And we got your boy KFC back. You know, he has Barstool Radio coming up, so we got him for a little bit. And most importantly, we have the groom. The man has made his way. He's locked up. They won't let him out.
Ring this year.
The only ring the Mets will be seeing this year, Kyle's.
So we got another episode of We Gotta Believe. Clem and the Meek Phil got you guys through some of the dog days here. And now we got the boys back. Meaningful game in September. Not coming once again. But hey, we've been there before, though, right? We've been there before. So I want to just get a sanity check on Kyle. Just being completely out of the country and having this team nowhere near their radar. How good do you feel right now, my friend?
It was like I was literally in Consolina, just enjoying myself. My phone was on airplane mode. I was 6 hours away from everything else, so I couldn't even check if I wanted to. It was perfection. And did anything big happen while I was gone? Company, perhaps.
New boss, same as the old boss.
Getting emails. I'm like, what is going on? There was a time to like be off the radar. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
things have changed. 2 weeks for sure.
And it's like, where's Kevin? Well, Kevin's doing Barstool Radio because that's back now. That's a thing. So we got our boy KFC back. KFC, how are you doing being in the country and ignoring the Mets like every Mets fan brain is?
I probably never, but certainly not since I was maybe like a teenager when like, you don't even control your own life. Have I watched such little Mets baseball? Like even in their darkest days. And maybe it's because the world of like content and entertainment has changed where it's like, am I going to watch like another fucking rerun movie on TBS or should I just put on the Mets game? I'll just put on the Mets game. Nowadays, there's a new reality show. There's a new docuseries. There's a new whatever. Season 3 of this is coming out. So it's just like, why the fuck would I waste my time? That is now I can go watch a comedy special or whatever, watch Out of Order, all the Barstool stuff. Why would I watch? So, probably since I was like 15 years old or some of those really, really dark years, I have not checked out quite like this. I mean, I'm talking, forget about watching the games. I'm not watching highlights. I'm not tuning into post-game banter. I haven't done sports radio in like a month. And it's kind of wild when I accidentally like created an experiment with myself because when Francesa came in here, he was like, I think there's a little bit of a witch hunt going on with Alonso. And I kind of just was like, yeah, like keep it moving. But I was like, is that really what's happening? Because I haven't listened to The Fan. I haven't listened to any of the New York radio talking heads, SNY people. And when you really take a step back and don't get caught up in the machine, you realize just how fucking ridiculous some of this shit is. Like, there is just no fucking reason to be out on Pete Alonso. There's a shred of a reason in that some people say he's not a great teammate, right? Over the years, we've heard a couple things. Most notably, that the one I remembered was when he was wearing his King Kong shirts or whatever he was wearing, and DeGrom said to him, "This is the New York Mets, not the New York Pete's." And I remember hearing that and being like, "Oh shit, that's not a great look if like our captain, our guy, our franchise is telling you to cool out." But then it turns out that Jacob DeGrom's a fucking asshole. So who cares what he thinks? But I for sure think that there is, in this modern era of baseball, there are people who are like, I got to get my profile up. I want to be, big on social media. I want to have a career after this. I want to be able to sell, all that shit. And I'm sure the people who do that are kind of like whatever. The people who don't do that probably fucking hate it. And so I think, yeah, a guy like Pete who has leaned into the home run derby a little bit and, tried to be cool, and he's not exactly like the most natural at it, I'm sure it rubs some people the wrong way. Does that outweigh 40 to 50 home runs a year for the New York Mets, a team whose fucking, career high prior to him was 41 home runs? Like, we are not a team, a franchise that is in position to turn your nose up at that sort of power production because of what? And you realize how much it's like, I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, but one side starts it. It's either the fans start it and the media realizes they can get all their clicks and followers and attention by leaning into it, or the unnamed sources or whoever in the media floats it, the fans latch onto it, and then they start it up. And it's just this fucking cycle that builds of now all of a sudden Pete Alonso needs to be traded, and he's the reason why this all fell apart. It's like, what are we talking about? And if there are still people out there complaining about Francisco Lindor, you see he's fucking top 5 in WAR next to like literally the best players in the National League, the superstars that are above reproach, beyond reproach, that never get criticized even once. Acuna, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, all these guys. He's in that conversation. But in our world, it's like, no, he's the reason why we're bad. And the guy who hits 50 home runs, there's a problem because he's doing the home run derby. And it's like, guys.
And by the way, if it's Lindor who's like floating it, like, oh, this is my team, I don't want Pete here. Pretty sure it worked out for Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent being complete assholes to each other for like seasons on seasons and hitting tons of home runs.
But this is what I'm saying, dude. I really don't think that's the case. I really can't imagine. Now, listen, if there's some sort of conversations and Lindor is like, I want to be the captain of this team, I don't know, maybe something like that goes on. I cannot imagine there would be any reason to go be like, hey, Steve, get rid of this fucking 50 home run guy because what? I don't like him. He was choking out Jeff McNeil, and they figured their shit out. Like, they don't have to be best friends, but I definitely don't think there is this, it just, being even at Barstool behind the scenes sometimes where you see certain things get twisted, manipulated, taken out of context, people run with it on the internet, and you're like, oh, no, that's not at all what's going on here. I can't even imagine the amount that happens on a Major League Baseball team. So I almost, I encourage people to do it. There's no fucking reason to watch right now. And I know some people are like, I tip my cap to the Meek Phils of the world who could watch this team every single night. You're, the most diehard fans in the world, go for it. But I'm telling you, it's almost better because you see like the real truth of what's going on when you're not, willingly putting yourself in the fucking spin cycle every single night.
I am always on the outside looking in on a lot of like the newer, the buzzier words, and I never truly knew what gaslighting was. I realized that being a Mets fan, you're just constantly getting gaslit by other idiot Mets fans. And Ted Berg had this this quote a couple of weeks ago, and I said it. It's the best thing. He goes, "The Mets' biggest problem is actually their best player, someone on WFAN every single day for the last 36 years." And it's the truest thing ever. Like, we grew up with Piazza. Piazza was the worst guy we could have had, even though he was a perfectly fine defensive catcher for what he did, and he was a Hall of Fame masher that was unlike basically anything you've ever seen.
Done it every time. They did it with Piazza when he was batting like 340. They did it with Beltran when he first showed up. They're doing it with Pete. They did it with Lindor. And I sympathize to some extent because that comes from a place of just desperation where I actually do have a thought that the Yankees being so bad for so long and having so bleak of a future with the Steinbrenner boys that this will kind of stop. But there was an era for a long time of like, why can't we just have the guy? Why can't we just have a winning team? And even if you're hitting, 30, the Yankees are hitting 40 and 40 and 50 and 60. And, we made the playoffs. They make the World Series. Whatever it is, there was always like one up. And so when you get your best player, you're desperate for it to be perfect. And when it's not perfect, you start stamping your feet like a fucking child. But I mean, every single time we have a superstar, there's a group of the fan base who talk shit incessantly. And then over the course of like 2, 3, 4 seasons, eventually they're like, oh yeah, wait a minute. This is one of the best players in baseball. You dumb fucking assholes. So I don't know how to stop that, but I do actually think the more the Yankees continue to suck and you're not just comparing yourself to keep up with the Joneses, that'll go away a little bit because you start to be like, oh, this happens to everybody, not just us.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this was in the 80s and they were like, Doc and Darryl are the problem here. We got to get him out of here. And turns out like there was some legit shit there. And now it's just like they just keep doing that cycle because if it bleeds, it leads, right? Especially in New York City, you get the fucking back page of the Post and the Daily News. But I got to ask the guy who was probably deep in the internet weeds, seeing what everyone's saying. Phil, what's the temperature out there in Mets land?
Phil MK Ultras himself. They're like, no one's doing the experiment to him. He just willingly dives in and like poisons his brain.
I'll tell you this, the last 2 days I actually did not watch the games because I had 2 fantasy football drafts. And I was wasted in one of them, so I ended up with Najee Harris in the 3rd round. So I'm pissed about that. But I've been on the streets, like going through Twitter. Obviously, I'm on my phone 12 hours a day. And with Pete Alonso, I think it's a lot of like clickbait stuff. Like Bob Nightingale's the one thing it's likely they'll trade him. Realistically, the Mets want to extend Pete Alonso at a certain price, say like 6 years, like 180, like somewhere around where Matt Olson Goldschmidt got. Pete probably thinks he's worth $300 million. And if you're not,
and that's where like there is some you have to be reasonable. And I think those comparisons are good ones because it's like, hey, those guys are just as good, if not better than you. So slow your roll. But yeah, obviously within reason.
And if you're that far apart on money, it's best to listen to offers, see what's out there. More than likely, you're going to be underwhelmed, and it'll play out next year, and then you'll just re-sign him in free agency. Like what we did with Nimmo, what the Yankees did with Judge. Just because he's not extended now doesn't mean like he won't be a Met for life.
There should be no scenario where he's not a Met for life and he doesn't have every single fucking record. Because this is his down year, and he's about to hit 40 home runs, have 100+ RBIs, and 100 hits. And it's like, what are we talking about then at that point? Because Francisco Alvarez hasn't fallen off a cliff, but it's like, this is a known entity, and we were banging the drum forever for Conforto, being like, well, he's an 85 RBI guy. You can pencil that in every single year. Like, we should probably sign him in for an extension. This guy is that, but he actually produces. Like, what the fuck are we talking about?
He is just Conforto, but better, and everybody was sucking Conforto's dick, begging for an extension, and when he got hurt and didn't get one.
They still are!
Yeah. It's like some sports tragedy that happened in New York. Meanwhile, they got a much better version of it sitting right in front of you. It's one thing, dude. It's one thing. And I don't know where I land on this yet. I've gone back and forth, but it's the new era, the new transition of batting average. If Pete Alonso had a good batting average, nobody would say a fucking word. If you are 300 with 40 home runs, you are fucking bulletproof. When you're batting like 210 and 220 and you're floating around up and down, there's a huge generation of fans that just can't wrap their head around that and can't get behind that. Now, I also think the new era goes too far the other direction where it means nothing. So maybe, if Pete had these numbers and his contract was coming up and if this was 5 years later, 10 years later, maybe it wouldn't be an issue. But like, that's the only thing you can say. He's fine enough with the glove. He's obviously got the power. He drives and runs. He just has a low batting average. And if that was different, I don't think anybody, because what comes along with that is some of him trying to be cool. He actually just would be, you know what I mean? Like when you're batting 210 and you're trying to be like the king of New York, people are like, bro, get out of here. You're batting 300 and you're hitting 40 home runs. You basically are. And then, so even if you are this goofy guy, the numbers back it up, but you have this one glaring stat that for so long has meant so much that, he stinks at. So that's the only thing, but that's the only thing keeping him from being like a $300 million guy. Because if he had a high batting average,
that's when he gets that big contract. Like that's the difference, and that's what they'll point to too. But it's also like we have a DH now. This isn't something where you're gonna get saddled with a contract and then the guy's stuck at first base as an albatross. Like you could just put him off of the bench.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there is a caveat for that. If you were to sign like Shohei Ohtani, you can't stick someone at DH.
Well, yeah, but it'd be like 6 years down the road.
That's a different conversation.
He's not Ortiz or Nelson Cruz or something. Like he can play first. It's fine.
Right. Yeah. And again, the fervor of all this and like the genesis of all this, I think started with Salicata when he went in the thing about it being a toxic, he's part of a toxic clubhouse, which the Salicata who everyone was telling to shut the fuck up when he said the NL lease was over in May is now the guy who's the know all, end all, be all of everything in the Mets world. And it's like, what the fuck are we talking about, guys? You guys, he didn't know what he was talking about last year, but now that everything sucks, he's a genius. And I know Frank usually gets into the spin cycles with like those kind of quotes and goes crazy about them. He's known to react a little overreaction here and there.
Shout out to our guy Frank who did the stand up to accept my award, but Frankie Borelli took it down in what was highway robbery. I mean, Frankie is a diehard Islander fan, but come on, that's got to go to Frank.
Honestly, I haven't thought this at all. I think Dave has proven since he got Barstool back that he could still throw that 99 in the black. There was a couple blogs he had last week, couple things. the fact that he had you presenting an award where you would have to hand Frank like the best fan at Barstool, and he didn't have you do that, I have to now wonder, you know. And listen, Frankie Borelli is a psychopath about the goddamn Islanders, and you don't know because he's like a babyface killer. But like, and the fact that it was Frankie Borelli, and that's Frank stood up all-time moment. But the fact that Dave couldn't make you have to basically bend the knee and give Frank an award for being the better fan than you are, essentially, quote unquote, is like, come on, Dave. That was a fucking that was a layup.
Borelli is in a sense like he's crazy like when the Islanders win. Frank is in a sense he's crazy when the Mets are losing.
And like, when they're winning, and he's still mad that they're winning.
Yeah.
You know, again, I think about it like in terms of our life, in terms of just here, like how many times do people write articles about what it's like inside the Barstool office? And it's just like wildly incorrect. You would have, you know, the media would have you believe that every woman who's ever walked through the door here is like beaten and spit on and held down. And then the girls who work here are like, what are you talking about? Like, come talk to me. I'll tell you what it's like. That's exactly what like clubhouse rumors and toxic locker rooms and all that sort of shit is. People have no fucking idea what they're talking about because there's a bunch of like 100 millionaires and then billionaires who are like, we don't address the fucking riffraff. So like, let him go play in the fucking, like Francesa, go shovel an old lady's walk. We don't give a fuck.
That had to be awesome seeing him in there too. And even him and Frank do have a rapport. Like Mike and the Mad Dog becoming Mike and the Frank the Tank would be like a legitimate
I don't want to be mean, but it's too good to not repeat. A stoolie hit me and said, we need a new show called Mike and the Mad Slob. And it's a little harsh, but goddamn it if it wouldn't play because those two together, Mike was like genuinely interested. Mike was like, tell me more. Where you from? Where you from? What do you do? Where's your family from? I mean, Frank might be the A Mike on that, the A host on that duo right there.
Them riffing and being like, who was the pitcher that day that you went to the game? And then Francesa also knowing, I'm like, Jesus Christ.
So good. Yeah, you pitched a doubleheader last week. Whatever.
Yeah. And like you think the Mad Dog dressing up as the Marquis was something. Frank would be in like the Yoda outfit, and then the next day he's dressed up as a dolphin. You don't know what you're getting with Frank's wardrobe. So there's a lot of ways that electric duo could go. Kev, I know you got to go soon for radio. I just got to get your thoughts on because me and Phil were kind of we felt one way about it. I don't know how you feel. Doc and Daryl getting their number retired.
I know, you know, you got, if you guys have ever seen me on the dozen, anytime it's a question about jersey numbers, I do not know jersey numbers. I do not care about jersey numbers. I couldn't have even told you what Doc and Daryl's numbers were prior to this. So I don't get truly bent out of shape about it. What I would say is the problem for me with those guys is I know 86 is like this crowning moment, but it ended with such a sour taste because of everything that happened with them. And then they go on to pitch no-hitters and win World Series with the Yankees. And it's almost like they're probably thinking their best days in New York were when they were on the Yankees and not, you know, addicted to fucking crack and coke and fighting through, with the Mets. So that rubs me the wrong way a little bit that like we're retiring two numbers that had like Yankee lore as well. And also just in general, I think retiring numbers should be like tight. Yeah. I mean, Seaver, Piazza, I think Wright like almost deserves one. But like if you wanted to say like, hey, listen, the numbers never really ended up there because he was injured, I could understand that, but I think he was more like to the team. Like that's probably it. Like if DeGrom finished out, I would say him, but to me, it should only be a couple guys. And so two dudes who like had a couple good seasons. I mean, obviously, if they didn't win a ring, we wouldn't be talking about this at all, right? So, yeah, like, does the ring make that big of a difference in terms of their solo careers? Because that's what you're talking about. It's just like the number and them, not necessarily winning the title. So, but I don't know. I don't care if this means that some guys got to wear number 63 and people who love numbers don't like that. That I don't really give a shit about that.
Yeah.
I just want to say one more thing before Kevin has to go to radio. The Yankees are 11 games out of a playoff spot in late August, the first meeting this summer in Yankees fans' history. So Kev, how does that make you feel?
Kev, we have a segment, Kev, called Misery Loves Company, and we just talk about the Yankees for like 10 minutes every episode. And
come on down, boys. I mean, could not have gotten any better. The Mets were the franchise in New York that had the foresight to be like, fuck it. We're pulling the plug. We know what's coming. The Yankees didn't. Right after the deadline, they shit the bed. They fell off the face of the earth. So they could have made. They really didn't have many moves to make the way the Mets did. But it's just great because they're just stuck. They're just stuck. They can't do what we did. They don't have the right guys to move. They don't have the right core to build around. And it's just going to be, another 4 years of Mike Stanton, another 25 years of Aaron Judge's toes, and another, I don't know how many does Cole have left where he's just going to keep kind of being a good pitcher, but never gets it done. I love it. And the best part is Yankee management, they don't give a fuck. They don't give a shit. As far as they're concerned, they're like, this is fine. We're good. I love it. I can't get enough of it.
They probably Hal's like, let me see the numbers. Let me see how we're doing. And they give him the standings and he throws it out. He's like, no, just the money numbers. I don't know what kind of attendance.
Show the attendance. How many chicken buckets are we selling?
Yeah.
Yep. And they are. So here's the thing. They're going to be the Wilpons, but with the ability to make money, which is when you kind of get into Cubs territory, where it's like, why even worry about getting good? We're just an attraction in its own right. The Wilpons only cared about money, but the Mets weren't good enough or historic enough to make money. So eventually they ran dry. This is the Yankees will forever, like the Cowboys, like the Lakers, like these teams just keep making money, whether they're good or bad. So
they raised the ticket prices. They raised the ticket prices for next year. And you know what? You're still going to come, and we know you're going to come.
100%.
But hey, at least the pinstripes are unsullied. There's not a big old fucking logo just slapped on there for $25 million.
It's all come tumbling down. It took 123, but it's finally here.
And I imagine you get this even worse than any of us do combined, Kev. If the Mets were having this season, dead fucking last place in the NL East with the shitty ass Nats, you would be hearing it a lot more because you'd have all the Yankees fans coming at you. They don't even want it because it's like, what are you going to do right now? Zip the lip. It's such an easier year.
I have not been chirped by a Yankee fan this year. It's amazing. It's fantastic. They got nothing.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely
all right. I'm a bounce, boys. Go to the rest of the show.
All right. Thanks, Kev. Thanks for tuning in. Like Kev just said, he's in that retired state of mind. So we are entering that state as well. So if you want to get into that retired state of mind of Kevin F. Clancy, get yourself a Coors Light. When the mountains are blue, it is ready to go and chill. We've talked about it a million times. Coors Light is there for us last year, 101 win season. This year, maybe 90 loss season. Clemmer gets a tattoo from it. But through all the good, the bads, and the Metsy, you're going to have Coors Light there just being able to chill you out. So take advantage of that free will and spend the summer chilling like a retiree and pair those moments with Coors Light, the beer that's made to chill. Perfect for all your summer plans or lack thereof. No judgment here. Kyle could just be up there in Italia, get some Blue Mountains and just drink with the beautiful views, his beautiful bride. Perfect all around. So this summer, chill like you're retired with Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Drizzly or Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/believe. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. We touched on it with Kev. Are you kind of in the same boat with Doc and Daryl, Kyle?
It's just more of a snowball effect because the Wilpons refuse to retire anybody. That now I feel like Cohen's making up the ground, and it's like I don't like that we're retiring so many in such a short period. But as long as we don't end up like with the Yankees with no single digits or like you're running out of real estate, we haven't had that many great players where it's like, okay, fine. Like those are the guys you think about when like the current fan base has like fond memories of the team. Like, you think of Keith, you think of Doc, and you think of Daryl. And, I don't know if they're going to retire Carter, but that'd kind of be the only other one out of that group where I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But Carter was with another team for so long, we'll have to see.
Yeah, it is kind of a snowball and a future problem. Someone said, I think at Barstool, Phil, you may know, didn't someone say, if you have 2 World Series, you shouldn't have 10 numbers retired or something like that? And it's kind of a fair point. And it's unique because a lot of these guys, they have 5-6 year chunks here, and that's really it. But it is more of I'm fine with, again, we see Willie Mays up there, and Willie Mays is almost a cautionary tale of going to the Mets at the end of your career and just looking like absolute dog shit, for such a legend that built, his stars shined. It is one of those things, but whatever. It's a talk radio discussion. It'll be over soon. It's almost like you need to have something less than a retired number, but more than the Mets Hall of Fame, where there's a million people. You almost need a Ring of Honor. And you're like, oh, he's in the Ring of Honor, but his number's not getting retired unless he's Tom Seaver, Piazza level. You got to almost make Cooperstown or slightly below that. So whatever. That's all done with. Guy who at one point we thought might be up there, not up there. Noah Syndergaard getting DFA'd by the Guardians after going 6 inning, 3 earned against the Dodgers, no less. And I don't know what he did yesterday.
No, it was the Blue. The Blue Jays yesterday. He gave up. He put a ball like as dead center as you could say. I said it looked like a position player pitching.
Yeah.
That was almost on a tee. And to one of like, not this season as much, but one of like the best hitters in baseball, future of a past MVP. And then he just gets fucking tattooed. So yeah, with 6 innings, 3 earned against the Dodgers, the last start, but then yesterday, 6 inning, 5 earned. And, he's kind of been up and down with the Guardians. The fact that they could just DFA this guy, and I have to see Cookie Carrasco every 5 days. Granted, we're in 2 different, stages as a franchise. For this
similar
season.
Numbers, though, like Syndergaard's ERA is only like 0.3 lower, so it's
Jesus Christ, man. I mean, I feel like we're always like touching on Syndergaard being like, this is rock bottom, and then he just digs another level deeper. Do you think this is the last we've seen of him at this point? Like, unless he
honestly
goes to the bullpen or something?
Maybe he tries to come back as a reliever, but it's like the Dodgers can't fix you, the Guardians can't fix you.
It's a sad tale, and it's like at the end of the day, when we look at who's remaining, it might be that Zach Wheeler is the last pitcher standing. Like, DeGrom, you hope he comes back because I still have no ill will towards him. But, like, Steven Matz is still in the league. And he just got another injury, like a lat tear or whatever with the Cardinals. So it's like all of those pitchers were so injury prone. And the one guy, Zach Wheeler, who couldn't stay on the mound in the beginning is the only one who's withstanding the test of time is crazy.
Yep. And if you need to look just how ruthless pitching a baseball can be, Kyle, it was probably like you were probably like awake if you had gotten the alert. Shohei Ohtani off the list for our potential rotation next year. It's a bummer. Would you still go after him, putting him in as because like I could still use a guy who's leading the league in home runs, could always use a bat like that, right? But the price tag comes down considerably, and I don't know if he's ever going to pitch. The way they could structure, I feel like Steve Cohen is probably the guy who could structure that contract the best, where Shohei could really make a lot of that money back if he decides to pitch again.
Yeah, like
or he just dies on the mound.
Do you think he just never throws again? No. I'm going to say he's going to try to come back and pitch again.
Double Tommy John? Doing the double Tommy John?
You don't know what he's going to be when he pitches again.
Too, so we'll see.
Yeah, true. That's a good point, too. Yeah, well, luckily we don't have to worry about that with anyone right now. And if we do, it'll just be the guy that can also hit, 50 home runs in a season potentially. I saw there was a Correa stat the other day, too, where it was like, oh, man, did we dodge an absolute bull? And that's before I don't think they're attributing those numbers to the ankle with the fucking plane crash in the ankle or whatever's going on.
So the worst ankle in human history.
Oh my gosh. So enough with the negative stuff. It's time to bring some light to the podcast, some happiness. It's basically our one moment of zen every single episode. It's Farmer Phil time. Phil going down to the minors, and by the minors I mean Michael Mayer and Joe DeMayo's timeline, and he's gonna bring up the best and the brightest for our future here. And there's one man child, I should say, because I don't know if he's even could be considered a man yet, but he is a man child with the greatest name in sports and maybe the greatest talent in sports, and his name is Jet motherfucking Williams.
Yeah, Jet Williams, WRC plus of like 190 and not triple. Jesus Christ, that's too far right. He's single A in Brooklyn. He's good. But let's touch on this. Marcos Vargas, remember him from a David Robertson trade? Well, David Robertson, no longer the Marlins closer. He blew a game on Saturday. God awful. Thank you, David, for your 4 months. You guys, a 17-year-old or whatever, that went 2 for 5 yesterday, and he won't turn 19 till May.
We're in Epler mode.
He's got the Epler shades.
Okay. Jet Williams, he used to be, every time I check my timeline, he'd be stealing a base. Now every time I check my timeline, he's hitting home run and stealing a base. Confirmed good. Jet Williams so far for the Brooklyn Cyclones. So it's good the Cyclones are getting a little bit of love. They have a guy down there, sell some tickets. They always have good bobbleheads. I feel like Mookie Wilson has a bobblehead every fucking year there. They have the Seinfeld night. It's always good when Brooklyn's getting some business there. Anything with I've seen the Cyclones official account has taken over the Big Red Dog. As they say, he went Big Red Dog. I'm telling you, I'm not asking for credit, But if someone can prove that they said that before I said it, I'll give the credit to the person. I know I said Uncle Stevie first, and I know I called Ryan Clifford the big red dog first. So if anyone else can prove me wrong, God bless you. But anything new from him or our boy, what's his name, Gabe Davis, anyone like that?
Gabe Davis is crushing double.
I missed him. I missed him in my fantasy draft, and it's haunting me ever since.
Well, Drew Gilbert, I haven't seen anything new on him, but I'm assuming his OPS still over 900. Mike Vassell in AAA, last 4 starts, 1.75 ERA.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to see him start a couple games down the stretch. That'd be cool. Ronnie Mauricio, 22 home runs. Oh, wait, not 22. Well, yeah, he's having a 2020 season in AAA where the balls are juiced. Brandon McMark Twain, he has a 952 OPS in AAA since being promoted.
There we go.
I can't pronounce that last name, so I'll go with that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Acuna, 465 on base over his last 9 games. Loved seeing that. Let's see what else. Oh, and Ronald Hernandez, the other guy from the Robertson trade, is an OPS over 1,000 since joining the Mets organization. So that's a 19-year-old cooking.
Who was I talking to about? I think it was someone it might have been you, Phil, because you're a sick fuck like this, or someone at the Barstool, the ballpark, and they were saying like the Mets, like they have like the little like Florida League, and it's just the 6 teams they rotate, and the Mets would see these Marlins.
That was Joe DeMayo said that.
Yes, Joe DeMayo said that, and ever since I heard that, and it's like they were like these guys are fucking legit. And we knew to move Robertson. Who's their closer? Who did they replace him with? Is Steve Stishak back there? Because I feel like
Tanner Scott.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Tanner Scott's the one last year on Keith Day that threw the ball away on Nemo's walk-off.
Oh, that's right. Mets
that was a happy day.
Yeah,
yep.
That was a great day. That was probably like top 5 days of the season last year for me. And that was like a game we had no business winning mostly. I can't wait till we start getting the young pitchers up here though, because I like hearing Kyle's pitching takes because Kyle is a pitcher, has been through it, and I always like that when like Matz was coming up or Peterson more so. Just hearing the Kyle takes and someone that's been in the fucking the fire. Have you been paying attention to any of this stuff, Kyle, in terms of the minors guys? Because that's basically all we have left here now.
Not a thing. The only question I had coming into this was why isn't Ronnie Mauricio up? Like I was like,
no one knows.
What is the hang up here? Because the guy who hit the walk up, that's the weirdest part. Like you leave, you're not watching the team, and then you come back, and it's like, I don't know any of the guys at the bottom of this lineup. Like the guy who hit the walk-off yesterday, I'm like, good for him. I guess he's a Met. I don't know anyone that's on this roster at the moment. Like 1 through 5 are pretty much the only people that I know.
So I have a question, Kyle. I'm giving you a week to make this start. You can get stretched out. How deep do you think you can go versus the Oakland A's lineup?
I'm hoping. No, I didn't pitch in college. I only pitched in high school. I played outfield in college. But
the question still remains, Kyle.
I am hoping that they break the Mets record. Like that's the one thing I got my eye on this year. As soon as I got back, I checked the standings. I'm like, they have 38 wins. I don't know if they won yesterday, but do you think that they're gonna unseat the 62 Mets as the worst team of all time?
What do they need? Like 8 more wins to pass that? Well, what's the record?
62 wins and 100 losses. Oh no, I'm sorry. That'd be fine.
Yeah. 38-93. Hold on.
They went 40 and 120, and the A's have 38, so they need to win 2 more games. Two more games. It's not a 62 game season. 162. It's 160. So I don't know what the winning percentage would be and all that. I got to win 2
I mean, if you gave me 6 months, I guarantee I'd make it further than Cookie Carrasco.
He went 5 innings versus them. So.
Yeah.
I'm looking here at their schedule for the A's coming up. First of all, they have the Angels, so you know they're going to win like 2 of those. And they have the Padres, and you know like the Padres and the Angels are like along with us, just 2 of those teams.
The Padres and the Nats have the same record, and the Nats gave them Soto.
Who is it? Melvin said the other day, he's like, we don't even look at the standings anymore. Like,
yeah.
Boys, this was like basically it was a weekly thing. I said the last couple of weeks, it could be worse. And I was always using the Angels and how they just kept fucking stuff up, the Ohtani injury, and with the Padres too. At least we have a plan. Whether the plan works or not,
yeah.
at least there's something there and there's future. There's hope. We at least have Farmer Phil in our lives now. We didn't have Farmer Phil a couple months ago. We had Ronnie Mauricio, who was just never going to get called up, apparently. So it's just nice to have a little bit of hope. That's my 2 cents.
I mean, yeah, it was an all-time seller's market, and they had Blake Snell and Josh Hader that they could trade for prospects, and they chose not to.
And I think they have a big free agent coming up next year who probably is going to be sick of all the losing there, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He's about as old as all prospects.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know if I want to trade Brett Beatty for Juan Soto. Juan Soto's like 3 days older than Brett Beatty. And was a fucking won a World Series and was a fucking monster. It's funny. I think all the Ohtani side of the Mets fans are now just going to join the Soto, and we're going to just be all in on that guy. And then God knows what happens, regardless of what happens with Ohtani. But
People are already floating that he's going to go to the Phillies, and I'm like, so you just mean the Nationals? Like they would just morph into the Nationals. They would have Soto, Harper, and Turner, and they didn't win anything when all those guys were together in the first place.
That's true. I have to say, I feel like Phillies fans are living the season we thought we were going to have, right? They've had some just crazy wins. I love the fucking wet bandits or whatever, and they're dumping water on them after games. And let's just make up something that we said, I think 2 or 3 years ago. Bryce Harper, confirmed, still very good. He had a couple he got a little boring, and it was is he overrated? He went from underrated, overrated, underrated, and is MVP and still coming back off the Tommy John. So he's fucking awesome. But yeah, it's tough seeing the Phillies. I don't fear the Phillies winning at all. I just feel like they could have that magic though. I just don't know if they have the pitching to get them through October at this point.
If they were going to, it would have been last year. That was the magic.
That's what I mean. They just went to the World Series last year. Unbelievable run. Can lightning strike twice?
Right.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I want Lightning to strike twice if it means they eliminate the Braves and then they lose in the World Series again. And if Philly just keeps losing in championships every year, that's fine. That's perfectly fine by me, even though I'm on pins and needles the entire week before it starts. The Super Bowl, I did not have fun watching that Super Bowl this year until obviously Jalen dropped the football and everything turned.
Until the last 2 minutes, yeah, the Super Bowl's not fun to watch.
Yeah. Again, Kadarius Toney, talk as much shit as you want about Giants and the fans. I do not care. You're a hero in my eyes forever, my friend.
And we traded didn't we trade the pick we got for him for Darren Waller? So we should be happy about that.
And the 6th round pick was Trey Hawkins, who's looking awesome in camp as a DB. So Joe Shane can make something happen out of that fucking guy, and the guy who's already injured and maybe not be back by week 1. So I'm feeling pretty good. Travis Kelce saying, "How could the Giants let him out of the building?" I think he's starting to find out right now how it's going over there. Let's wrap this up though with one big thing. Kyle, tell us, how was the wedding, baby? How did everything go? Did it go in fast forward because it's just the best day of your life and you're just saying hi to friends and family and you blink and it's over and you're down thousands of dollars?
Went off without a hitch. Got to cocktail hour, which was the biggest thing because that's where the best food's at. In case anybody hasn't been to 30 weddings like I have, that's where that's where the meat and potatoes are. That's where you get the good food. So we got there for that, and then had a nice little break. We had 2 days in between, and then right off to the honeymoon. So we were living in the honeymoon phase the whole way through, and now it's back to the status quo. Now I got to figure out how to get a house.
Figure out how to get a house. Dave Portman is your boss again, and everything's You left right before that as well, which was pretty. I think 2 days.
Whirlwind,
before, right?
Because I was actually already off, and so I was still here. I was getting ready to leave, so I was checking my emails, but not opening them. I was just getting the notifications, and then that day it was just going off, and I'm like, "What the hell is happening?" And then I saw the news break. I'm like, "Holy shit!" So I was pumped. I mean, I still am pumped, obviously. So it was a nice little wedding gift as I'm heading off to where we're going. I'm like, okay, back to the content, back to the grimy old school type of stuff, which I love.
HQ2 scumbag shit, right?
I was here before and I'm now here after, so we're still good.
Beautiful. And this is Meek Phil's time to cook. Meek Phil is a little bit of a star these days.
I saw
getting on the yak. He's drinking milk. I don't know.
Oh my God.
He was running for president. A lot of shit's been going on.
I was fucking crying. I'd rather have that on me than anything else.
Oh, Phil, you were truly one of a kind, brother. You were truly one of a kind. Well, welcome back, Kyle. Great to have you back. I feel like we did enough today. We don't have to throw it to the grid. So
one last thing. I do not want a tribute video for Max Scherzer tonight.
Oh God, no! Great call.
Better not.
Nope. Travis Jankowski, he can get one. If DeGrom is in the building, sure. If he's not, it's kind of useless. But Max Scherzer, no tribute video. Fuck him.
I like that Jankowski tribute video. Hey Jake, here's the first cut of your tribute video that we'll have when you're healthy and back here, and then just crickets, and then don't even acknowledge that Max Scherzer is in the building. Great way to go. It's so funny. Like if we watched this like this time last year about what we're saying about Max Scherzer, be like, what the did he like murder somebody? It's like, no, he said something out the door that kind of pissed us off, and he came through small in every big spot, and it's really funny how it's gone. But it
He's
just
a
feels
mush too. They've fallen off completely.
They have
Mets
imploded,
West
man.
taking over. Mariners.
They blew a 10-game lead in a month. I mean, just saying, there's not a coincidence that one guy gets added and that happens.
Back-to-back years.
Killed two teams, and then how did the the Dodgers are the Dodgers, but did they like hit any like hiccups, or are they such a well-oiled machine when he got there that it really just didn't matter? And
they didn't win the division for once that year, so you could attribute it to that.
There you go, Phil. That guy's a franchise killer, man. Let's get that narrative going.
Max Scherzer, the franchise killer.
Yeah, I wish he was the one that didn't get the ring instead of Bryce Harper in Washington. Could really roll with this narrative. And more importantly, eyes on the minors, because that's where all our happiness goes now. And keep fucking laughing at the Yankees fans. That's all we got. Gotta believe.
Gotta believe.
Gotta believe.